To none does he give license to sin. If God doesn't exist, then I can do whatever I want, because nothing I do in the end really matters. But if God does exist, I can't do whatever I want, because literally everything I do matters. And what a gift that is. To be responsible for the choices we make. What we choose to do will have consequences, whether good or bad. It's the first reading. Before man are life and death, good and evil. Whichever he chooses shall be given him. We live in an age, a time, obsessed with rights. What are my rights? Our world is obsessed with it. Rights, rights, rights. Freedom of speech is my right. I have the right to privacy. According to the world, I have the right to choose my gender, the right to end my pregnancy for any reason. Why? My body, my choice. It's my right. Everywhere you turn, there are people fighting for the rights of one group or another. Rights, rights, rights. No one can get in the way of my right. And indeed, authentic rights are essential to the human being. But might our world be leaving out an essential part of the conversation of what it means to be human? It's not simply about our rights. There's something that must stand alongside the gift of our God-given rights. And the answer is responsibility. What is my personal responsibility? And sadly, rather than encouraging and challenging us to consider our personal responsibility to God, to our neighbor, each other, to our country, in many ways it seems our secular age, this world, is solely concerned with trumpeting individual rights. And so sadly, the consequence is that today's age gives so often the blanket license to do whatever, to sin. The religion or the gospel of the day seems to be it's everybody's individual right to live how they feel is right for them. We cannot and should not prevent anybody from choosing to live according to their own beliefs. This is the religion or the gospel of the world. As long as you don't get in the way of my rights, you can do whatever you like. The voice of the world says this in so many ways. Be you. Whatever floats your boat, be you. But in contrast, what does God say? As we heard, to none does he give license to sin. To none does he give license to sin. In the eyes of God, our actions matter. What you and I do matters, and it has eternal consequences. And this is good news, that the moral life exists, that indeed there is right and wrong, that we have been given the gift of personal responsibility. Because again, if God doesn't exist, well, we can do whatever we want, which on its own has an attractiveness. In the end, nothing we do really matters. So we kind of like that notion of free reign, but in the end, license to sin, it leaves life empty, flat, void. But the good news, the greatest joy, is if God does exist. And that's what we profess, that God is real. God is real. We believe in him. I can't do whatever I want because literally everything I do matters. In the gospel, Jesus teaches this personal responsibility. You have heard that it was said, but I say to you. It's so important for us to regularly hear the word of God, the gospel proclaimed, to get the direct account of the words of Jesus, not what others second-handedly say about Jesus, but what comes from his own mouth. And Jesus, in fact, he doesn't lower the bar of personal responsibility, but he amplifies it. He elevates it. He highlights our responsibility here to settle with our opponents, to heal rifts, to reconcile with anyone we've hurt or who has hurt us. He addresses the interior sin of lust, the lust of the heart. If your right eye causes you to sin, cut it out. Meaning, go the lengths necessary to remove sin from your life. Not whatever floats your boat, but get things in right order. Jesus makes clear how difficult it is, the great responsibility of marriage, that divorce and remarriage results in adultery. In the end, each of us will be held responsible for our actions, how we have chosen to live. And what a gift to know that there is such thing as good and evil, right and wrong, and that because God exists, literally everything I do will matter.